thank you all for joining us for this showcase of Litquake's Elder Project. I know it's a warm and sunny Saturday in the Bay, and you could be anywhere else in the world right now, but you're here with us. So that is much, much appreciated. Elder Writer Project, it was founded by the amazing Jessica Galloway, who's in the audience right now. And it's an outreach project of the Litquake Foundation, and it's been supported over the last this is going on. We're in the like fifth year, which is wild. But it's been supported throughout parts of that by Bill Graham Memorial Foundation, California Arts Council, and really just the generosity of caring individuals like yourself, who believe in the mission of the Elder Project, which is to bring creative writing and storytelling workshops to elder communities across SF, and in order to open new pathways to self-expression, create a more intergenerational literary scene in the Bay Area, combat isolation with a creative community, and so much more. And if you're here, and you're helping support that vision. So thank you for that. And if you'd like to support even more, you can always donate by visiting litquake.org. Maybe I'll put a link to the chat, but we're in the chat. But today you're going to hear from some of the wonderful writers, with the pleasure of working with across 3 different sites. We serve writers, there'll be writers from Buyer Square at the San Francisco campus for Jewish Living. Which is made possible by a partnership with the Jewish Senior Living Group. And, you're going to have writers from the Downtown Oakland Senior Center. And that's made possible by a partnership with the city of Oakland. And you're going to hear from writers in the Cayuga Community Connectors Group, which is made possible by a partnership with
exactly.
So it's going to be amazing. I also want to offer an abundance of gratitude to each of our teaching instructors, Anthony Fangari, Michelle Kitcher, Tam Putnam, Julie Rogers, Denise Sullivan, who I think I saw in the audience as well too. So thank you. Without each of you, this would not be possible. But I'm gonna pass it on to Tam now, who is also the Citizen Program Director, to introduce our first group of readers. So take it away.
Hi, I'm Tam Putnam, and I'm one of the Elder Project teachers at the San Francisco campus for Jewish Living. And I have to say, a distinct advantage that comes of being a writer with years under your belt is that you've accumulated a lot of great material. And I've been astonished at the stories that have come out of this group. And I want to say a big thanks to Rob Saracen, Angela Smalley, and Jeffrey Washburn for making our classes possible at SF Campus for Jewish Living. And I want to introduce you now to our 3 writers, Freddie Axe, Esther Mugar, and Michael Thaler. And first up.
Okay, I'm Freddie Axe, and I'm going to read you a story that I wrote called Coming of Age. My father was old world. He believed that educating a daughter was a waste of money, since I was just going to get married and have kids anyway. I should add that he was a teenager during the Great Depression, and he knew what it was to have no money. So money was very dear to him. It should be said that he had to go out to work to help feed himself and his siblings, so he never finished high school. Finishing high school was seen as enough, something he would have liked to have done himself. My only sibling, a brother 15 years older than I, had gone to college on the GI Bill after his service in World War II. He was determined that I should continue with school, and he knew how unhappy I was living at home. Go to college, he said. Expand your world, learn new things, he said. It's the fastest way out of the house, he said. Have some fun, he said, trying to convince me to at least try it. He began a campaign with my father to finance my further education, and they argued and quarreled for days. I had never considered going on to school. I knew nothing about what college was like and could only compare school with my experiences at the dreadful days of high school. My brother won the argument, my father relented, and I began to prepare myself for college. I applied to 4 schools, was astonishingly accepted at all of them, and chose to enroll in the one farthest away from home. My understanding what college was like came mostly from current films like She's Working Her Way Through College, a movie musical starring Virginia Mayo. The story is about a burlesque dancer who goes to college where she romances a professor and helps put on a musical show. Times were different then. I modeled myself after Virginia, and I shopped for a completely new wardrobe, including a simple but elegant Virginia Mayo wide-brimmed picture hat and a 5-piece set of matching luggage, things never before seen in my family. The time came, and with considerable uncertainty, I said goodbye to everyone. Attired in my new successful young woman's business suit and extravagant hat, I embarked alone on my first ever plane trip to Syracuse, New York. On arrival, feeling exceptionally grown up, I took a taxi to the dorm address. Was it as I expected? Not at all. Not by a long shot. A group of girls dressed in Bermuda shorts and sweatshirts were going in and out of the dorm, and people who I assumed were their parents were helping them unload boxes and bags from cars parked along the curb. My taxi pulled up, I got out, and while I paid the driver, I realized that people were openly staring at me. First college lesson learned: real life is not always like the movies, especially 1956 musical comedy movies. My first solo venture from teenager to young adult was based on bad fiction. A little more research on my part might have helped me to fit in a little bit better. Fortunately, people were very friendly and forgiving, and only later did I learn that when they saw me in my suit and hat with my matching luggage, they thought I was some sort of royalty arriving. It worked out well in the end, and in a short while, it became evident that what college was about. And acting on my wonderful brother's advice, I began to learn how to learn, to grow, and to have some fun.
That's wonderful.
Hello, my name is Esther Mugar, and I'm going to read you a short story called Day Camp. Day Camp. What new horror was this? I was perfectly content to spend my long summer days building Lego castles with Mary Ann from next door, or engrossed in a good book. Nancy Drew was my current series of choice. But my parents, caring and well-meaning, thought that the supervised outdoor experience would contribute to my health and well-being. The volunteer who escorted us to the camp was a neighborhood high schooler. We rode 2 subway trains, transferring mid-trip to get to Fort Washington Park at the foot of the George Washington Bridge. There were wooded trails leading down to the Hudson River, but poison ivy cautioned us to stay with the group. There were games and songs and a boxed lunch. I hated it. Every evening, I asked my parents not to send me back. Just finish out the week, they answered. You might change your mind. I didn't. One day, I just left while the others were engrossed in some inane activity. I confidently walked the several blocks to the subway station, dropped my token into the slot, pushed through the turnstile, and followed the route so familiar to me by now. The downtown A train to 145th Street, changed to the uptown D train, and then straight home. I felt very grown up and in control until I reached my front door. There were my distraught parents. Why were they so upset? Also, the parents of the teenage volunteer. Why were they here? Then I saw the policeman. My resolve crumbled as my knees started to shake. Was I in trouble? But when did they notice that I had left? And why did they doubt that I could find my way home? I then realized that they all thought that I had been kidnapped or worse and were genuinely worried. So worried that they forgot to punish me. I never went back.
Excellent.
My name is Michael Thaler, and I'm going to read a story based on a story with apologies to Ernest Hemingway. The Old Man and the Fish. The old man dozed off as soon as the two aides from the agency folded his bony frame into the deck chair under the crimson canopy set up that morning for a visit from his son Sam. The old man's gaunt features were concealed under a black cotton mask. He received that morning a birthday present from the staff and fellow residents at the assisted living facility. At breakfast, the waiters, cooks, and a few sleepy-eyed early risers among the residents had confronted the old man with a chorus of happy birthdays as he pushed his walker through the glass sliding doors that led into the dining room. The startled old man looked over his shoulder, unsure the spectacle was meant for him. He had long ago stopped counting his birthdays. He pretended this day was like any other. The oohs and ahs that greeted the donning of his birthday present, the mask that proclaimed in large white letters, "On to 100, Al." The old man was puzzled by this, but did not ask. He was preoccupied with anxious thoughts about his son, who had managed to arrange a meeting despite the strict quarantine enforced after several residents and staff had contracted the dreaded virus. He was determined to walk toward his son on his own. Half an hour before the encounter, the old man's attendant stood him up and held open the heavy fireproof metal door of his one-bedroom apartment. Now he made small tentative steps to maintain his balance and turned slowly into the long, empty passageway. Instantly, his slight figure triggered a wave of light along the path ahead that faded into the shadows behind him as he moved forward, head down, to watch his steps. The corridor to the outside was painted to resemble a large, brightly illuminated aquarium. The old man's halting progress took him past large, pale fish that swam across a white-capped sea toward the exit. The old man vaguely recalled a story, his memories were increasingly fuzzy, about an old fisherman who set out one last time to catch the biggest fish ever. Did he venture too far out to sea and was lost? The old man could no longer be certain how the story ended, but he reflected it seemed to mirror his own, a fishing expedition nearing its end. Asleep in the deck chair under the undulating fronds of the canopy, the old man dreamt about the backyard in his old house where the children were born and he had raised them after their mother had died while they were still young. He had taught each child the game of chess. He had played with himself as a distraction in his youth while hiding from Nazis in his native Poland. Sammy, his firstborn and favorite, showed the aptitude and competitive drive to succeed at the game and beyond. Sammy became the star of his high school team, traveled to tournaments, and collected trophies he later displayed in a glass case in his own house. In his dream, the old man relived the day 6-year-old Sammy had finally defeated him for the first time in a game that lasted 4 hours, as neither had been willing to concede. I beat you, Dad," the boy had danced around the picnic table in the yard, father's king grasped in his chubby fingers. The old man felt pressure on his shoulder and his eyelids fluttered open. His son had arrived with a small bouquet of roses that he stuffed into a narrow flask from the kitchen and was now leaning over his father. "Dad, wake up," shouted Sammy through his pale blue mask supplied to visitors at the reception desk. Aware the old man had lost most of his hearing, his son waved a chess piece in front of him and jumped about to catch his attention. When the old man finally regained full awareness of his surroundings, he saw what appeared to be a continuation of his dream. Here was Sammy waving a chess piece in his face as he pranced about in a victory dance. Was winning once not enough? Did he have to rub it in again? "Happy birthday, Dad," shouted Sam into the old man's ear. He gestured toward a small table set with flowers and chess pieces on a board. "I thought my birthday was some time ago," muttered the old man. "This morning at breakfast seemed so long ago." "Dad, today you turned 99, exclaimed Sam through the mask. "And to celebrate all you taught me, the great games we played, I dug up the chess set you gave me for my 5th birthday. Look, I've set up the pieces and even made the first move. Now it's your move." A perplexed look crossed the old man's cavernous orbits. He stared at the line of pawns that stretched across the board, then lifted his gaze toward the giant fish that swam toward the exit. "No, Sammy," he whispered. "It's your turn, son."
So great, so great, wonderful, wonderful. Oh, I love that. You know, it's your turn, son. That's like the best kind of victory, and after a 4-hour game. But yeah, and thinking about those those games, the songs, the box lunch, the box lunch to day camp. Thinking about the parents and police, which would definitely crumble any youngster's resolve. Uh, and yeah, I mean, like everyone does. I think, I think everyone does need an extravagant hat. And I'm still trying to learn whether, life can be like the movie musicals. But that was great, Freddie, Esther, Michael. Fantastic. Thank you so much for agreeing to read. Let's send some more virtual applause and love for their work. You should also know that Freddie is co-editor of a beautiful newsletter, Frankly Speaking. It's exclusive to Frank residences, but if you go by, you could snag a copy, and you can see more of their work. Sometimes through there. Next up, we have another group of very talented writers who attend classes to the Downtown Oakland Senior Center. The director, Jesse Cutter, has been so integral in bringing these classes back since the center opened again. So thank you to Jesse Cutter. Today, you're going to hear work from Adrian Beasley, writing as Kitty Wynn, Tana Belia, Beverly Calvo, Joyce Mills, Patrick Taffy, Linda Taylor, and Barbara Williams as well. Wait, I gotta double check. Did Andy popped in, right? Where are you, Andy? Are you? Oh, maybe. Nope, he did not. He did not make it in. But you're gonna hear work from these fantastic, from these fantastic writers. So I'll let you take it away, Kitty.
Hello. Am I on? Okay, we've been having the Friday morning poetry class for some years, and we never stopped through all of COVID. So with the Oakland Downtown Senior Center. So now we have added on the Litquake's classes of crafting poetry. I started off and I continue to always ask, what is poetry? And I've asked them now at Litquake. And so Anthony brought in various forms of poetry, and I passed the bar over to our own Kevin, who has brought us another form of poetry. So I'm going to read to you my poem titled Confused. Why do I want so desperately to write poetry when I don't even know what it is? Why do I pull out my hair and rack my brain and dream ridiculous dreams about grandmas I never knew, uncles' lies and aunts I despise, teachers and preachers, writers with PhDs, all telling me what I should say or do? First they said, no, 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 your poetry has to rhyme. Then they said, tisk, tisk, tisk. Your poetry has to chime, it has to ring, it has to beat, it has to tap, it has to rap, it has to ting, it has to sing. But then I heard the most interesting thing that set me all a-twitter. Forget all those things, drown out all those voices. There's only one way a poem is sensible, only one way that a true poem is possible. It must be buried inside itself. Poetry must be invisible.
Yeah. It's very like.
I dreamed I wrote the greatest poem ever written. I bowed as they clapped. I was awarded the Pulitzer, the Peabody, every award imaginable. A poem that had no rhyme, had no chime, had no beat, no tap, no rap. It didn't ring, it didn't ting. It was the poem of perfect perfection. Nobody could see it, nobody could hear it, nobody could read it, nobody could sing it. The greatest poem ever was invisible. So why do I want so desperately to write poetry when I don't even know what it is?
And you're up, Tama.
Oh,
Plug in my ears for out of here.
wait, okay. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Kevin, you said we could read two things if they're short.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to start with, it's called Justice in a Silver Bullet. There we were, Tuesday night, gathered around the TV. The room was transformed into a holy place of worship, going to church, and it wasn't Sunday. We watched and waited for the jolt of TNT to arrive and lift us out of life as we knew it. The first sounds of Rossini's William Tell Overture blurting out from the screen, passion awakened from slumber by sound itself. Da-dum, da-dum, da-da-dum, dum-dum-dum, da-da-dum, 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 dum-dum. A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust and a hearty hi-oh silver. The Lone Ranger rides again. Imagine a masked ranger and his companion, faithful, kind, benevolent, inconspicuous Tonto, shooting silver bullets and riding through our household. Blind justice on the loose, and the hair on everyone's arm stood straight up. Back again like clockwork bold, a fight for justice and an end to oppression gold. Another week cleansed, sanctified, we were made holy again. Yet and still, I was puzzled why the Lone Ranger, a mythical hero, was masked. Who was he hiding from? Why was he hiding? I was puzzled why Tonto was called Tonto. In Spanish, which I spoke, the word meant dumb, and that saddened me. I was puzzled by why the hair on my arm stood straight up at the side of the Lone Ranger. I was puzzled why LR was the main character. Less respect was given to Tonto, and no one seemed to care. Because for me, the whole story was about Tonto, It's always been and will always be about Tonto. Now, thank you. And I'm an artist, so you'll understand. Bits and pieces, plummeting into vastness, the ocean of dreams and desires. I picked the flowered scissors, picked up the flowered scissors, caress and bless them, give homage to the garage sale where I found them. The first cut of the night into the Vanity Fair magazine, searching for lips, my ode to sensuality, an opportunity to find and possess an image emanated from a source outside of myself. Feel my hand pressing the handles, riding the form, rounding the edges, freeing the meaning. Tightness, tension moves through my body as I cut. Temperature rising in my female parts, gathering speed at the long cuts, slowing down, biting my lip as I stare into the crevices. The scissors becoming my new self, like a racehorse rounding the edges of form, shaping and freeing an image from its surroundings to be reborn into a new life, where the lips become a hat for a woman who has lost her crown. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And Beverly.
I joined the poetry workshop at the downtown Oakland Senior Center when I moved here 10 years ago. Since then, I've participated in several Litquake classes that have encouraged me to improve my poetry and prose writing. The poem I'm reading today is inspired by a recent experience. The title is Shopping Day. Carrying coffee in cardboard cups, pedestrians parade. It's a shirt sleeve Saturday. Dogs of undetermined lineage strain leashes. Parents focus on a barefoot baby in stroller. Heading for Whole Food Market, the challenge is great. With no seconds to spare, the wheels of my walker careen, then stick in potholes and cracks. I pause on the traffic island, waiting for the green light to give me another chance. In the market, my wieldy walker is protective. Backstepping shoppers have a lot on their minds, like me. What can I buy? Light enough to carry? Appealing enough for the effort? Can someone reach it for me? Standing in line, I check out, relieved to remember my PIN. A busy shopper asks me to step aside, hurrying by with her loaded cart. Persevering on the rough, reversed road, I arrive home. Mission accomplished.
Hello. Shall I go?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Hi, this is Joyce. I am a part of the Downtown Center poetry, but I'll read today a piece from my memoir. This is a short section. The memoir is entitled Letters from Fallen Empires. It takes place in the summer of 1971 when I'm 17 years old. I'm traveling on a train from Europe through the former Yugoslavia to Greece. In the summer of 1971, I took to the road, hitchhiking through France and Italy, then took a train to Greece, where I was to meet my aunt and uncle. I hadn't counted on what I found along the way. I woke after a night sitting up in the train. We were coming into Yugoslavia. It was cold and gray. We pulled into a town. I've forgotten the name. The smoke from the slowing train made my eyes smart. There were men lying at the side of the train tracks. Why? Some of the men were bloodied. They had heads and limbs covered with bandages. They were on cots or sitting on bags, uniforms torn, waiting. Were they waiting for a train to get them to a hospital or just going home? They didn't get up as we went by. They were not getting on this train. The spires and turrets of the town appeared. It was unlike any town I had ever seen before. There were palm trees in the distance, but here by the train tracks, there was only grit and oil and black water seeping through rusted railway spikes and onto the waiting, exhausted men. Then there was a screeching of brakes as the old train slowed down. For what seemed miles, it stopped and started with jarring brakes and a warning whistle ever so often. But the silence of the men made the noises fall back to my memory, to the back of my memory. Finally, the train stopped. The passengers around me started gathering their belongings and shouting to one another. They were shoving into the narrow aisle of the train car, now filled with passengers waiting to get off. I held tight to my few things, not knowing where I was going. I only knew I should get off. There was no station in view. Where was the station? Why were these men lying in bandages all along the tracks, miles and miles of men? I was caught in a bustle of getting off, pushed from behind, squeezed through the door of the train. I heard voices around me speaking German and what I guessed were Slavic languages. No one was speaking French, Italian, English, anything I knew how to speak. Why did it never occur to me I wouldn't understand anyone here? My foot came off the step from the train. I fell over something soft and warm, startling me so badly I almost fell to my knees. Have I fallen over a body? A sense of horror gripped my belly. It was a deer, a dead deer, drawn up to the side of the tracks, waiting like the men to be picked up and taken somewhere. Its dead eyes looked past me like the eyes of the soldiers. My legs wobbled. I forced myself up to go where? Where was everyone else going? I followed the crowd, still waking up and a bit scared. We came to the edge of the town and there was indeed some form of station. I stood staring. What next? I noticed a young woman looking my way. She came over to talk to me. I must have looked like I was in a state of shock. She tried me in German, Italian, then thankfully in English. It turned out she was a Yugoslavian student home from university, someplace in Italy. I can't remember her name, but she took pity on me and took me home to spend the night. She was not poor. I remember the bed in that house. It was big and high and covered with layers of down quilts. I can still feel the sensation of sinking into those quilts in that strange place, my bag thrown in the corner of the room. The next day, she showed me around the town. It was a mixture of East and West. Soldiers in Western garb passed men in turbans. There were camels in the Central Park. A mosque on the hill had cobblestone steps leading to the entrance. I left the next day for Greece on a train again. As we approached the hills surrounding the first Greek city we entered, lonely military sentinels stood with rifles at their sides, looking down at us. The war, whatever it was not over. Greece was disconcertingly tame after the experience of war on a train. I didn't know it at the time, of course, but I must have witnessed a small piece of the nationalist struggles within what was then the Federal People's Republic of Yugoslavia.
And Patrick.
I joined the Oakland Litquake poetry group heard about it in September, just joined it. And I wrote poetry in high school, but not since then. So this poem is called Surrounded. Some casual manufactories surrounding us are copper wires twisted inside soft plastic. Hard plastic frames held in place by carbon steel screws plastered into walls of gypsum, paper, mica, and clay, painted with resin and butyl methacrylate covered in pigments crushed together with organic mineral terps. We're encasing ourselves for outer space. We're getting ready to live on any stone ball. We're almost ready to build the next generation. Soon we can assemble our descendants. We will create the next species. The older I get, the more I'm amazed by all the things I'm not aware of, by all the things I don't know. But I want you to touch me while touch means what you and I think it means. I want to be surrounded by the feel of you, while touch is still an intimate, inarticulate thing we understand.
Fantastic, Barbara.
Okay, I've been with the Downtown Oakland Senior Center now for like 11 years. I started soon as I retired, and it's still saying I mute myself here, so I don't know what that's. Anyway, and Jennifer King has just been my mentor, and I enjoyed this recent foray into being around some different teachers. It's been great. By the way, I wrote this poem 20 years ago, and I just had another one of those milestone birthdays, so trust me, I'm still relating to it. And it's titled, Must Say Goodbye. Just not ready. Seems like yesterday, 20, 30, 40, 50, a quiet ticking clock. No prom to celebrate menopause. Easy escape from gray hair. But the hormones know and they stop. My mind struggles, not prepared for this. Sure, I can value the wrinkles that are creeping in, but no one else is. Or I can stick to the you are as young as you feel line, but this body knows, the hormones know. I don't want to know, but I know. I take these pills to replace what nature has stopped producing. So I trick my body, but cannot trick my mind. Life begins at 40, I've been told. What happens at 50? The hormones know. Once again, I'm at a crossroad. Which path to take? A new life or just bury my dreams? Is it too late? I grieve the passage of the girl, the young woman, the middle-aged woman. I hug her. I kiss her. I miss all the hers. I release her slowly, like a mother releasing her child. And I look in the mirror at the woman staring back. I reach to the source that has guided and protected the girl, the young woman. I say to this source, my one, my God, I am ready. I know this woman will have a joy that could only happen now. I know only through faith, for I never thought of growing up and what that means. So I say goodbye, so I say hello.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes. It's never too late. Saying goodbye and saying hello to, the woman in the mirror, and all about growing up. Yeah, so much wonder. Like that was excellent. So much gratitude for each of you for agreeing when to read, and just like I'm so glad we got it together. That's right. It's just wonderful. Like what the was it, the silence of men making memory fall back and ready to live on like any stone ball, and the like lips becoming a hat, and a woman's frown, and temperature rising over, and Kitty of course making poetry visible and making it sing. So thank you. Yeah, it was so great, so great. And eternal gratitude to Jennifer King. I'm so glad. Thank you, Robert, for mentioning her. Want to definitely send light to Jennifer. Next up, we're going to welcome our final group. And this is a group that's been at it almost since the beginning of the project. And it's, again, wild to think that it's like, whoa, 4 5 years, now in the 5th year. And so, we're members of this group, and they aren't performing or publishing work as part of Cosmic Elders and Persimmon Tree, or San Francisco Public Library's poem of the day. They're just being generally dope. So you're going to hear work from first Helen Dannenberg, Naomi Cooper, Doris Beers, Grace Dianca, Joe Chaub, Lee Ellen Shoemaker, Greg Taylor, Miracle Thomas, and Roger Underhill. So take us away, Helen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, good. This first one, I got the idea of nesting a nest in the heart from a novel I read, and I can't remember the author or the novel, but I still want to give her credit. So this I think of as a poem. The nesting heart. She wonders if she made a nest in his heart, and if, where is it now that he is gone? Perhaps there is a magic place somewhere where heart nests are kept comfortably on soft shelves. The remaining love lives, fed by resident angels, then distributed around the world where most needed. A special examination of her heart is needed to see if he made a nest there. Are there other nests? She is so hoping, needing space, please, for one more nest before she is no longer on this earth. What would he have put in the nest? How he liked her greeny eyes, her art making, whatever struck her fancy, perform, write, make things. Her sense of humor shone in the art. What she liked about him, how he used the word fret, don't fret. His expression, he doesn't know me from a bagel. Making scrambled eggs in her kitchen, a dish towel over his shoulder. He became a walking towel rack. His nightly calls for the exchange of, I love you. His idea, but attributed to her. Mutual looking into each other's eyeballs. His advice on a condolence note about a friend's husband's death. His overall intelligence. His willingness to go see whatever she wanted, obscure dance companies and out-of-the-way spaces. Hey, the San Francisco Zoo has a tarantula exhibit. Sure. His uncanny good choice of books he gave her. His boyishness, which persisted even as age continued on. His big forearms, his maleness, his beautiful white hair. His interest in the arts, as necessary to him as food. The memory, standing on a step stool to kiss him hello and goodbye. These next two are very short poems. Write it. Write it. Do I want anyone to read it? Write it. Need it. Read it. Need it. Write it. Seed it. From head to hand, from heart to hand, from known to paper, from unknown to thought, from understood to paper, from confusion to thought, fraught with caught. And this one is meditation-ish. Life sensing, similar ties, clarification. Poetry clarifies, clear, calm, simple acceptance. Absorb the natural world. Learn from leaves and water, understanding threads of those who have already done it. We can all do it. Think down into the meeting, float up, see with your skin, hear with your eyes, together, the universe, alone, part of it, at the same time. This is my last one. It's flash fiction transformation. She walked over to Beth in her human form. She pressed the intercom. Beth let her in. While Beth went to the bathroom, she changed into a cat, a brown tabby with an orange nose and green eyes. She had no plan as how to explain this to Beth, so she continued to speak in her human voice to Beth and practiced a cat voice. Flora, the cat, was not convinced. Her eyes were wide open, questioning, uncertain. They touched noses, batted paws, ran around the rug together. Both stood at the door asking to be let out, which was denied. Human cat hoped she would not have to urinate. Would she do that as a human or a cat? She knew where the bathroom was, but not the litter pan. She tried some vocal meows. Fun. Flora answered. Beth appeared puzzled, but not upset. Walking around a chair, human cat was surprised when she saw Beth again. There had been a transformation. Beth was now an orange tabby. The three of them ran around the rug together, meowing. The purring, which she was happy she and Beth could master, made the volume times 3. Then they cuddled together in a heap and fell contentedly asleep on the rug. And I want to thank all the Litquake teachers. It's just been wonderful. They all come together and learning from one, learning from other, learning from another. And I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic, Helen. Thank you, thank you. And Naomi, just wanted to cue you up. And next up, Naomi Cooper.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Here's another cat poem. It's called Buffy the Cat Speaks Candidly of His Grievances. Scruffy Buffy feels so huffy when he looks in the looking glass, although that little lass who feeds him, his human, supposedly friend, likes the way his whiskers curl, delicate at the ends. She does not realize how he regards his face, disgrace. His pale fur, its gleam, fluffy, chuffy, puffy, like a cape for some princess or queen. But here's the thing, Buffy wants to be a king. He hates his silken ears, pink nose, tail feathery, a plume. It makes him fume. She does not realize how he's pissed. His keeper, the pris, self-centered girl, who thinks it's all right how his fur's so white. She even likes to call him Pearl. And he faces another pressing situation, bringing grievous aggravation. It's that neighborhood Tom living too nearby, so sly, fat cat, short-haired, sleek gray, thin managed tail with handsome splay. His name is Smokey, sometimes calls himself Smoke, biting, fighting, conceited bloke. Favorite with lady feline folks, big time rival, toothy smile so vile. Well, Cats have 9 lives, most folks opine. And Buffy dreams of better times when he'll be reborn as a tiger, black and gold. He will be bold, ooze with sex appeal, hunt down that Smokey for a tasty meal. And as for the girl keeper who stuffs Buff in her doll's dresses, he'll have her for dessert after Smokey's digested. The next poem is called Father. Some children will have a mother. Some children will not have a mother, but all babies require closeness to some large, good human animal, the chest, skin, reassuring tap of heart. A father can serve. So many nights my father held the newest versions of my body, safe in a small navy blue quilt, warm, not too warm. When I grew old enough to walk, I traveled steadily upon this earth. But thank you. That's the end.
Fantastic, fantastic, Doris. You're up.
There we go. Hello. When I was in college, I claimed to people that I wanted to grow up to be an obscure surrealist poet because my life was obscure. I was already obscure. My life was surreal, and the only hard part was the poetry part. I really appreciate Litquake for helping make the poetry part a little less dire. This first one is musing on the last year and a half. 3 words: shelter in place. Place ourselves in shelter. Place everyone in some shelter. Shopping in the freezer, pour again. Taking time to watch the bees, even my yard seems too far to travel. Shopping again, a risk taker's dream. I tell myself this is normal. This is sort of a summation of realizations about the grandfather I grew up with. You think you know someone. I read census reports from 1890. At 12, you are painting silk. At 9, your sister paints shoelaces. 7 of you, tall as trees, except for the fragile Norwegian bride, in a 2 up, 2 down that somehow survived all the bombings. I skipped a visit to this last trashy end of a trash-strewn suburb. You told the American census you were a sign painter, no more, no less. Freshly gilded fire engines, your proof. Knocking out yet another Washington's headquarters or Betsy Ross house on request. Jack says, Pop never went to art school. Everyone says, don't mention Picasso. Your grandfather hates Picasso, has no time for abstraction. I watched you mix the plaster and thought nothing of why a rose, why that rose, the full-blown bloom that would have adorned how many hundreds of yards of silk, too blatant for cotton. It was just the rose you always painted, on my sleeping bag for camp, on my mother's thrift store lamp, 5 red strokes of the brush, a couple dabs of yellow and green, and boom, next. I can picture your ease, your speed, your mastery. The only clue you gave fell to me. I did not see it. No one said a word. I watched you mix the plaster and thought nothing of it. It was just the rose you always painted. Golden, was it leaf? On a huge green board, on my sleeping bag for camp, on my mother's thrift store lamp. No one said a word. You never said a word. The final one, just a bit of a rant. The revolution. Gill said, the revolution will not be televised, but it was last week, and I missed it. The counter-revolution is televised and posted and grammed and tweeted in a daily drumbeat like the one that drove the doctor mad. The sledgehammer is coming from inside the building. The newsman's rage and refusal was only meant for folk like me, white and comfortable with the mirage of a doorway out, televised nightly with a what about chaser to make sure we tune in tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, wait, I think you might be muted, Grace.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so thanks, Litquake teachers. You're so incredible, Cayuga people. And it's so nice to meet the people from the Jewish home. I live a couple blocks away, and people from Oakland. Kiss the wind. Kiss the wind without guilt. It chills and pants at the back door with wild tiger cats waiting for scraps. Pop open the red umbrella and dance in no rain to percussion in your head, while another withers more and more. Capture the essence of beauty in a cup with a broken handle, spider webs on the middle, though another only snakes and petrified trash. House your dreams in a Hoosier in a back room that looks on the cyclone tree the troubled child climbs, no matter what voice calls to him. Does he know his father will be murdered by fire? Imagine, survive the embittered anima, and jump on Saturday mornings when the house is vacant. Slide the hallways on slippery feet, fling open doors, dare be buoyant while the albatross flies. Kiss the wind through battered red shutters your mama rescued from a train. She always saw possibility and muted her ears to the wailing. Laugh out your belly button so hard you spit, snort through your nose unembarrassed. Sometimes all there is. Praise the ocean, reject mistaken memories, regrets that stop time. Tiptoe and stomp in honor of living in spite of moribundity. Be kind and wish for wonder. This one's called Mother's Shoes. She had a thing about wearing shoes and showed up at the door. Otherwise, she'd go barefoot a lot and let me too. Can't remember her regular shoes. There were shoes in the pink bedroom closet next to the window, overlooking peonies in the summer and crocus in winter. Low-heeled pumps, black and brown, shiny wine-colored slippers she wore if she had to go to the hospital for a D&C. And suede open-toe sling-back dancing shoes. She didn't go dancing anymore, but she let me clump around in them. But I can't remember her regular shoes to do ordinary things, everything else shoes. She even had gold Capezio flats. She pierced holes into string laces she could crisscross up to her knees to wear with a full skirt she could fan and sombrero earrings. I was old enough to be embarrassed, but I can't remember her everything else shoes. Did she wear high button shoes in that 1922 photo? Huge amount of snow, away from the house where her father would not let her have friends? Did she grab the felt slipper next to her bed in that cold back room to strike her father when he tried to slip into that bed? Did she wear stiff mahogany Oxfords when she thrust her foot across the threshold to bar her father's mistress from her dead mother's house? Did she wear mucklucks those 7 years she missed college to keep house misanthropic brothers who squandered university privileges to become a warehouseman and a hobo? Did she wear white low-heeled shoes with her magenta student nurse's cape when she went back to school? Did she wear black sensible shoes to match the heavy bag with medical supplies when she cared for a man with no arms and legs who drew cartoons and a little girl who loved to house clean. I don't remember her in Keds. I don't remember her shoes for everything else, except for flip-flops she wore early morning and end of day to water snapdragons under the bathroom window and pansies beneath the apple tree planted when I was born. When she lay in a heavy fountain gray casket, I wondered if she might be wearing one purple suede open-toe sling-back shoe with the other foot bare. One more short one. Baptized in fog, like a new cross on top of the hill, assisting the wind, kissing the rain, waiting to open like a canyon. Sing an aria to no one, dance on point barefoot except for purple nails. Throw away the cracker box past. Pick up your broken heart and swallow it whole. You will never be this again. Look back on your wisdom, drive blind around the curve. Plaster your wall with what you know. Be brave, be alone, be among. Stop, start, bend, break, but don't be brittle. You are baptized in fog. Remember. Thank you.
And go.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to present. I, like others, greatly appreciate the fine teaching and camaraderie, fellow students and their support as well at Litquake, and also the Marina's class that I'm taking on Wednesday afternoons. What I'd like to share is one piece, a prose piece I've entitled The Button Mounds. Buttons, buttons, buttons. Right now, I need a replacement button for my shirt. And between the many photos of dear family members displayed on my bedroom dresser sits a small golden metal box containing loose buttons, some sewing needles, and thread. When I cast my eyes on the contents of the box, my thoughts immediately leap back to my youth. Specifically, my wild-eyed searches for buttons dumped behind the ballpark of my old suburban neighborhood. That dumping ground was within a few miles of the former 19th century textile and garment factories that once operated within my home city. There, my friends Johnny, Robert, and I, all of us under 10 years of age, would occasionally yet feverishly scour the mounds of debris left by illegal dumpers for the treasures we sought. Ceramic, shell, metal, cloth, and plastic buttons of interesting shape, color, or size, and preferably undamaged. When we found an interesting button, it would go into our respective pockets and ultimately reside in a bedroom drawer in our homes or in some treasure sack we individually kept for such purpose. To my knowledge, none of us gifted any of the buttons to a family member, and we never traded them among ourselves or used them like wampum. Nothing like that. Instead, we were strictly collectors, not sewers of buttons. And we never thought to share our booty with anyone. At least I never did. We just raided those dump piles for collecting's sake and the thrill we got from it. That and the off chance to one-up one another. During the hunt, we would periodically hear a yell as one of us found a special button. We would then crowd around to critique, admire, envy, dismiss, or ignore that friend's discovery. We viewed ourselves as raucous pirates, collecting hidden booty or unearthing treasures of the ancient pyramids. And there was usually a significant degree of unbridled play as well as competition among us. But we had our disagreements too, as greedy pirates and tomb robbers are apt to do. Hey, Robert and Joe, how come I really get to loot the biggest mound? Johnny complained. You have to arrive early and stake your claim, Robert responded authoritatively. How about we draw straws when we first arrive or share the big mound? I suggested. No, we'll only get in each other's way while digging. So arrive early or visit the mounds on your own, Robert countered. However, Robert eventually relented, knowing that visiting this off-the-beat spot alone was a bad idea. But while sharing the biggest mound, he insisted that a fellow pirate stay on the side opposite him. This strategy worked fine, and our feasting on the button mounds would sometimes last for several hours. We only abandoned them when we were constantly unlucky during our digs, became bored and restless, and the noontime siren or our empty stomachs urged us to return home for lunch and dinner. Funny, but upon reflecting now on those times, I don't remember when we stopped visiting those button mounds, what became of them, or the whereabouts of the buttons that I had collected there. Most likely the mounds were removed for some public or private redevelopment project. As for my button collection, I likely misplaced it when I grew older and eventually moved out of my parents' home. Nonetheless, in my mind's eye, those little treasures hold cherished childhood memories. Of course, these days, my fascination with buttons has greatly diminished. Rarely do I visit a fabric, craft, or sewing store. So buttons are off my radar screen. That is, until I really need one. And when I do, as in this very moment, I invariably return to the gold medal box on my dresser in quest of a suitable button for my specific sewing need. Moreover, when I happen to find a stray usable button these days, I cannot help but deposit that treasure piece for safekeeping in you know where.
Excellent, excellent. And Lee Ellen.
Hi, I'm Lee Ellen Shoemaker. I have 3 short pieces. Teacher's prompt, prologue. Wrist brace in place. I embrace my pen. I could claim I dreamed this topic to capture the reader's attention. The truth of the matter is not so surprising. My teacher gave me detention. I'm not complaining, well, not very much, but I'd rather be with friends, playing with words, counting by thirds as our mutual desires co-blend. Why do we do this play with words? Why let our memories besiege us? Why recall the stories and tears and absurds begot by our teacher's prompt? It's an antidote for loneliness, compressing isolation with word time, thoughts softened by photon multiplied imagination. But sometimes the words don't rhyme. If I could write like Billy Collins, I could sneak in a furry gray mouse or the sweet scent of a bar of lavender soap. I try, but there's no mouse in this house. My locked down world is 600 feet and peeks through a convex lens to gravity waves, tight shoes and amends, a bitchy mother and old boyfriends. Nail my words with meanings clear like fireworks exploding dark skies. Reflect complex confessions from all directions. Everything forgotten is brought near. Everything's remembered without fear. Epilogue. Curly cues will prance with lines, and loops and dots are dancing. Our dabs and Miss Alice Douglas, my third grade teacher, roaming the spheres, romancing. This next, thank you. This next is my last blind date. In the 1980s, the San Francisco Bay Guardian newspaper had matchmaking pages. I remember the last time I answered a man looking for women ad. Quote, just arrived from Cleveland, psychologist looking for new friends, close quote. We arranged to meet at La Méditerranée on Fillmore Street. He looked like Dr. Zachary Smith from the original Lost in Space TV series. Dr. Smith was an intergalactic doctor of environmental psychology. Several inches shorter than me, balding, a little bit nebbish, but a presentable looking gentleman. After a typical La Méditerranée wait for a table, we enjoyed a typical La Méditerranée dinner and carried on a typical first meeting conversation, all very typical, pleasant and promising. After dinner, he suggested a short walk in the nearby pocket park. We sat on a bench and continued talking. During a pause in the conversation, he suddenly tilted his head back, gazed to imaginary stars, and shyly began, shall I tell you what I'm looking for in a woman? Yes, of course, I replied. My Cleveland girlfriend and I had a wonderful relationship. He paused for a moment, continuing to look up at the sky. I made little black cat gloves for her with needles for the claws. I gulped discreetly. He continued dreamily. She sat astride me, wearing them as she placed nipple clamps on me. We played our kitty games for hours. I jumped up, faking a coughing spasm. I think I'm having an asthma attack, I said, and quickly left him sitting there. The next day, I chose a greeting card with a painting of a Japanese painting. I hope you find what you are looking for, I wrote, but it doesn't sound like me. Thank you for a lovely dinner. This last is very short. Rain. I remember scrubbing a grease stain with Fell's naphtha soap in our kitchen sink. I remember the damp attic smell and the clothesline strung between aging rafters. I remember the squeak of wooden clothespins securing his wet khaki shirt. I remember the rain. I remember footsteps on the attic stairs. I remember his terse voice. I don't remember what he said I did or did not do. I don't remember seeing his right fist speeding toward my face. I remember the impact, the bright flash as vitreous humor jerked my retina, my involuntary sob. I remember the rain. Thank you very much.
I'm an old slam poet from the 90s. This is on the planet of blankety blank mammals. Biting begins, thoughts come second, and questions follow hard. Considerations barely make it to the equation, like numbers infinitesimal, like the amount of soil it takes to make a tree, very, very close to zero. A trace of minerals only arises from soil. Trees are made out of air. Trees eat carbon out of the atmosphere for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and trees won't care if I spill the tea. Trees house beings of light. They are pure compassion, pure love, pure bliss, and infinitely subtle. Buddha got what he caught from under a Bodhi tree. Ficus religioso, a fig tree with heart-shaped leaves. Trees have been here for 200 million years. They help make soil through physical, chemical, and biological means. They exhale oxygen, coordinate with each other, share resources, cooperate with fungi to develop environments where insects, fish, mammals, and birds can and must flourish. We have a job. What we have to do is breathe. Trees will feed us, shade us, provide shelter. Trees will allow us to turn them into houses and chairs, dressers, cabinets, decks, floors. Trees are so giving, even dead and burnished into something as square as a table will give us good luck whenever we knock on wood. Imagine the luck you get from resting in the crown of an old living applewood. The higher you go, the bigger your outlook. And they didn't even need us to be gardeners. One commandment pertained, and it seemed egregiously obvious to our elders. Don't clear cut a single major forest ever. Keep breathing and allow us to do the same. Pretty basic notion. I mean, it was in every book by America's favorite children's author, Dr. Seuss. Just because something doesn't look like you doesn't mean it's less loving or less alive. In fact, never mind, that's a low, nasty thicket. Our elders, the tree housing beings of light, have great compassion for us. Our lives are short, grubby, desperately weak, and we don't know the value of anything. Trees are making their 1,000-year plans right now. And yes, I am reading Richard Powers' novel, The Overstory. Halfway through, in fact, but I predict hickories and pines will burrow deep underground to avoid the upcoming anti-climate action Armageddon. Ebony, black ironwood, walnut will get hard as diamonds. Bitterbark, sandbarks, rubber tree will use the upcoming all-consuming fire to explode their seeds into outer space, seek out new worlds they can actually bring to life. Their pure potential thriving in the hard vacuum of interstellar space. Pure potential, meet pure emptiness. No problem, as my teacher Gen Choma frequently says with a radiant smile, as if we just shared a shy, sly, and cozy secret. Gen Choma is merging with Tara, mother of all Buddhas. She is moving toward and moving into the pure land of bliss. I am working to become more and more like Gen Choma, no matter how far back I feel myself on the path. We can become like trees, live lives of supreme giving, perfect patience, completely blissed out all the time, alive for hundreds of millions of peaceful years. How the elders loved the era of dinosaurs. Those magnificent creatures had some breath and they farted so outrageously, never getting around to chainsaws. Dinosaurs survived for how long? And we brought it all crashing down how quickly? Yep, trees know what's happening. They've seen it before, they know what to do, they love us no matter what we've done, and we are free to join them still. All we have to do is drop every single last shred of negativity for being pure light. That's the price, they say. No matter how many times I ask it to be something, anything other. God, the stupidity of intelligent mammals.
Hi, yeah, I'm Mary Gale, and I've got a short story and a shorter poem. The first story was a result of Denise Sullivan's prompt called Food for Thought. No. Downtown San Francisco can be a wonderful place, especially when you're going out to lunch. The restaurant choices are endless, so the worst problem is deciding where you want to go. This is when you've got the money to do so, of course. If you live paycheck to paycheck, as I did for many years, your dining choices are severely limited. In the early 80s, when I was supporting myself and my now ex-husband, lunch money was a luxury. On payday, I could go to Wendy's on Market Street for a nice hamburger and a baked potato, usually saving the potato for the next day's lunch. But when that paycheck was long gone, when a handful of coins was the only money left and the home pantry was bare, I would scour the area near my workplace for food bargains. Not meal bargains, food bargains. Not far from that Wendy's at the foot of Geary, there was a tiny market that mainly sold cigarettes, lotto tickets, and candy bars. But they also had a movie-style popcorn maker, and they sold a fat, tall bag of popcorn for 25 cents. When the weather permitted, I would take that warm bag of freshly popped popcorn and sit outside on the steps at Market and Montgomery at lunchtime. For that hour, I would read a book or daydream of brunch at the Palace Hotel across the street, or just people watch. The people watching was the best part. There were all the office workers, of course. Men would sling their jackets over one shoulder and loosen their ties while walking along in twos or threes, continuing their work conversations or recalling a recent Giants win. Women in power suits left their high heels under their desks and walked to Macy's in laced up sneakers. Then there were the more colorful characters. Daredevil bicycle messengers zipped along, oblivious to traffic. A doomsayer with a sign announcing the end of the world would stroll past the street corner preacher, each ignoring the other, perhaps in quiet respect of their differing viewpoints. As I sat there watching the world go by, I would slowly savor every bite of that popcorn. This did not come naturally. I learned a technique over time. Never devouring handfuls of it as much as I wanted to, I would pick one or two big fluffy kernels at a time, put them in my mouth, and let the buttery, salty flavors melt over my tongue first. Only then would I chew the tasty morsel. Keeping myself at this slow pace of eating, it might take me 30 minutes to finish the bag. By that time, my stomach and brain agreed that I was not hungry anymore and I could go back to work for the afternoon. I think about that bargain lunch now and then, often when I'm treating myself to a nice sit-down lunch in an upscale eatery. And yes, I did eventually have brunch at the Palace Hotel. The food was lovely, of course, but the people watching was definitely lackluster. And the poem, Denise's prompt was to do a shout out, just to things that you like. I called it Unexpected Poetry, or Isn't It Pretty? Expected prose turns into unexpected poetry, sparked from cats and dogs howling at the moon or at nothing at all. Poetic phrases appear alongside a dog speeding down the beach, and purrs that rattle my chest morph into gentle rhymes. So here's to unexpected poetry, conjured from biting into a slice of pineapple, juice dripping down your chin, and to love, and to loss, and to saying goodbye, and tears dripping down your cheeks. Moments with people who say too little leave me curious, generating poetry instead of answers. Images of sunsets that split the sky and memories that split my heart turn into words scattered on a page. Is it poetry yet? Shiny new notebooks invite me to scream into their clean white pages, anger exploding out of exhausted lungs, remembering how I cried till I laughed and then cried some more. Pens of many colors bring some memories to life and leave others behind. Reading the poem later, I realize it's shit, but gee, isn't it pretty on the page? That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roger Underhill. Great program, everyone. So this is called In Case You Missed It. So how did democratic countries like Germany and Italy grow into autocracies and war machines to dominate other countries and people's minds in the 1930s? Well, it was over 70 years ago, so it's not exactly fresh in people's memory. And where any civics classes are left, there might not be many uncomfortable details to compare with today. But don't despair. There may just be a chance to see how it unfolds in live action, as in a movie, but actually be part of the experience. The Nazis took quite some time to gain control of Germany, with Hitler even losing an election and traction early in the process. It seems a recent US president lost an election, actually two, if total votes are counted, but still clamors that he didn't and wants his disastrous, deadly power back. In the past, Hitler was able to control the media to convince the people that he could save them and their broken economy to become a supreme white Aryan power. He was able to buy off the German president and had American corporate alliances with companies like IBM and Coca-Cola. Everything goes better with Coke, right? Hard to resist those sugar-coated profits, kind of like Facebook and Google getting richer by amplifying conspiracy theories, creating outrage, followers, and advertising dollars. Corporate media doesn't want to call this out and upset their apple cart of corporate advertisers and river of overflowing money. Corporate money for Republican and some Democrats and legislators in Congress keeps their profits sky high. And as Hitler blamed problems on those the Nazis considered non-white, such as Jews, gypsies, and immigrants, Republicans play this race card too. Note that Trump had Steve Miller as his chief racist. So it's the divide and conquer strategy. Just say it's all mostly politics so people avoid it, while offering lots of entertainment distraction, including unreal reality shows. So we get a flash in the pan reality show host parading as a president. It becomes more fun to go to Disneyland than pay attention to a real reality via independent news. Add in our mythology that money will trickle down to the rest of us from rich people's tax breaks and corporate subsidies. With that fallacy, President Reagan lost revenue and put the mentally ill in the streets while ending free education. That set up the housing and student loan crises and for soaring bank profits. And the myth that all can become part of the rich 1 or 10%. More funny Republican math. Since they act more like the Taliban, maybe it's time for a name change. You know, that success formula about rising early and working hard. Then J. Paul Getty said, yeah, and discover oil. And with the hundreds and thousands of deaths under Trump's what, me worry, COVID attitude, doesn't he qualify as our first domestic terrorist mass murderer president? So if the Democratic Party doesn't pass some big changes for us all, we'll all get a chance to see how a democratic experiment can be transformed into fascism. We won't need to speak German, though, through this smooth transition. Not the best Disney cartoon. So maybe a little more communication with our representatives might be in order, rather than corporate lobbyists getting their way. Do people want to be telling their grandkids of memories of when there once was a great experiment in democracy? Anishi, that's a native word for thank you.
Ooh, thank you, Roger. Oh, yes. Speaking that truth from, asking how our democracy crumbles and everything being better with a Coke, to, just so, wow, just, yeah, everyone. Amazing. Thank you to, all the readers in this section and, and all. I have to have some popcorn now. After this, and I want to go, dance in the rain. I feel like I always got that percussion in my head. Or, thinking about when, you know, the yard seems too far to travel, and you know, thinking go back to, you know, Buffy the cat and the nesting heart and fireworks exploding over the dark skies. Just yeah, you know, amazing. So one more time, I want to say thank you to, for all the readers in the showcase. I want to say thank you to everyone who, for attending. And one more time, I want to remind you all that if you love the event today, you can donate at litquake.org. And if you have questions about the program, you can, email me, probably the easiest, kevin@elderwriting.net. Email that. And some final thank yous. Thank you, Graham, for making this all, getting this together. I feel like there's so much, Zoom zoominess. So thanks for hosting the event and having it all here. Thank you. I saw Amy, I saw you in the audience, so thank you for all your help always, and the time that you give. And thank you to Jack and Jane for starting the Litquake. It's still reverberating. And with that, we out.
Okay.